Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russian President Vladimir Putin has officially annexed 4 more areas of Ukraine in a signing ceremony in the Kremlin in Moscow. In a speech, Mr. Putin claimed people living in there had made their choice, but the referendums have been condemned as shams. Addressing hundreds of Russian ministers and diplomats in the lavish ceremony, he echoed previous claims that the West was trying to bring Russia to its knees and make Russians slaves. Putin also referred to the US military as brutal before condemning the expansion of NATO. After the speech, the Russian-appointed leaders of the territories being seized signed the formal documents. Western countries have repeated they will never respect or acknowledge what they say is an illegal land grab.
The United States, I want to be very clear about this, the United States will never recognize Russia's claims on Ukraine's sovereign territory. This so-called referendum was a sham, an absolute sham. The results were manufactured in Moscow. And the true will of the Ukrainian people is evident every day as they sacrifice their lives to save their people and maintain the independence of their country.
The Ukrainian regional governor in Zaporizhia says at least 25 citizens have been killed and 50 injured in a Russian strike on a civilian convoy. A huge crater next to a row of vehicles in the city testifies to the violence of the attack. Windows and windscreens were smashed in. The convoy was hit as people were preparing to travel to the Russian-occupied part of the region to pick up their relatives and also deliver humanitarian aid. Reacting to the attack in the early hours of Friday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia was a state terrorist. He said Russia launched 16 rockets on the city and vowed to punish perpetrators for every lost Ukrainian life. Meanwhile, a Russian-installed local official blamed Ukraine for the attack. Meanwhile, footage released by Ukraine's State Emergency Service shows an electricity substation on fire following what the service said was a shelling attack by Russia. The SES claimed 3 transformers were destroyed in the attack, with 6 fire engines and 25 personnel working to make the site safe. It is one of a number of attacks on substations in Ukraine since Russia invaded in February. The US has said it seems Russia is to blame for this week's leaks in the Nord Stream gas pipelines. Here, Danish aircraft and ships monitoring one of the gas leaks. US Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said an investigation was being carried out into the cause of what she called an act of sabotage, adding it was highly unlikely that these incidents are a coincidence. No evidence about how the leaks happened has been made public. Russia has dismissed suggestions that it was to blame, saying claims that it had damaged the pipelines were stupid and absurd. China's President Xi Jinping has led senior government officials, including Premier Li Keqiang, at a Martyrs' Day ceremony in Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Members of the People's Liberation Army Honor Guard marched with floral baskets in the square before laying them at the monument to the people's heroes during the ceremony. Xi and members of the Politburo walked past the floral tributes shortly after. Martyrs' Day is an annual national memorial day which began in 2014, the second year of Xi's leadership. Reports suggest a coup attempt appears to be underway in Burkina Faso after gunshots were heard near the presidential palace. Videos showed soldiers on the streets of Burkina Faso's capital on Friday. Gunfire was also heard at the National Assembly, the national broadcaster, while the residence of the Prime Minister has been blocked by military vehicles. It was only in January that the current head of state, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, here seen speaking to soldiers yesterday, ousted President Roch Kabore through a coup. And finally, singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran has been told he must go to court after it was alleged that he copied his 2014 hit Thinking Out Loud from Marvin Gaye's 1973 classic Let's Get It On. US District Judge Louis Stanton in Manhattan denied Sheeran's bid to dismiss the copyright infringement suit by Structured Asset Sales LLC. Stanton said a jury must decide whether the 2 songs are substantially similar. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.